Hello, my mythical creatures, back at you with another Podfic. We are still working on Someone Like You. We are on chapter 2. And if you haven't listened to chapter 1, go do that because, well, chapter 2 ain't going to make much sense if you haven't listened to chapter 1. So let's get on to chapter 2. Chapter 2. Izuku sat down across from his mother, a plate full of fish, vegetables, and rice, waiting for him. The two of them ate in silence as is usual. When Izuku was younger, him and his mother Inko. When Izuku was younger, him and his mother Inko used to talk nearly constantly when they were in the same room. But as he grew older, his mother gradually stopped responding to what Izuku was saying. Then Izuku began to get bullied more and more at school. The first few times he was injured enough to need treatment, his mother would grab the first aid kit, drag Izuku into the bathroom, and patch him up. She taught him how to treat a bruise, how to make sure a burn leaves as little damage as possible, how to stitch together his skin even let's try this. She taught him how to treat a bruise, how to make sure a burn leaves as little damage as possible, how to stitch together his skin, and even how to set different joints after they became dislocated. Inko claimed first aid was something everyone should know, whether they were the leader of a country, the number one hero, an average citizen, or a bum on the street. And she was right. It was a good skill to know. Izuku continued to assume that was the reason he never went to a doctor. His mother was a nurse, so if there was an injury that was too severe to treat at home, he was sure she would take him to the hospital. He was wrong. When he was about 10, one of his bullies took things a bit too far. A boy he didn't know the name of, but had an average quirk. The ability to create mist from his hands pushed him out into traffic. A nearby pedestrian called for an ambulance. He was taken to a hospital and treated. It just so happened to be the same hospital his mother worked at. The workers patched him up and she took him home. Izuku didn't have any major injuries, just a concussion, a cut to his forehead, which left a scar that was now hidden in his hairline, and a broken arm. They walked into their living room. Inko spun around and backhanded him. She didn't yell. She never yells. Instead, she demanded to know how he could embarrass her. How could he make her coworkers think she is okay with wasting resources, which are nearly always in short supply? She then informed him that he would be paying her back for what she spent on the medical bill. From then on, Izuku made sure to take care of any and all injuries on his own. He never started any conversations. His mother became Inko, never mom. Izuku was actually pretty lucky that night. Inko had decided to make food for more than just herself. It happens about once a week. Any other night, Izuku had to make food on his own. Inko had mentioned in passing once that he needed to learn how to cook so he could survive on his own. At 14, Izuku was more than aware that the only reason she ever kept him around anymore was to make sure her image wasn't tarnished. Nothing would sour her career more than being seen as a neglected mother. Neglectful mother. So she always made sure there was enough food in the house for 2 people, that the first aid kit was stocked. Everything else Izuku had to do on his own. At this point, Inko may as well be a roommate. You're at the end of your 2nd year now. Have you submitted your plans for after graduation? Inko asked into the silence. Izuku stopped eating, a small piece of broccoli between his chopsticks. I did, he said. Well, are you going to tell me what you wrote? I said I wanted to apply for UA Hero course, but I've changed my mind. This got Inko's attention. Oh? She asked. Yeah, I'm going to be a crime fighter. Inko stared at him. She placed her chopsticks onto their holder, intertwining her hands, and placed them on her lap. No, you're not going to be a crime fighter. I will support your decision to forego applying for UA, but under no circumstances are you to become a crime fighter. Yes, I am, Izuku insisted. Her face scrunched up in anger. No. Going out and fighting villains is too dangerous for someone like you. I can do it, and I will do it. You're going to get yourself killed. Inko raised her voice slightly. Not enough to be heard by the neighbors, of course. That's what always happens. Being a crime fighter is just a way for people who are quirkless to die. They are too cowardly to do it themselves, so they have the villains do it for them. That is not my intention. I'm not trying to get killed. I have always wanted to be a hero. I am not sure if you have checked lately, but there isn't exactly any job opportunities out there for the quirkless. Izuku's eyebrows furrowed in fury. Any jobs out there are minimum wage, unskilled, and with no opportunities for advancement. They are dead ends. I want to do something more with my life than that. I said no, Inko stated firmly, and that is final. What do I need to do to prove to you that I can do it? Izuku asked, broccoli long since dropped onto his plate and chopsticks clutched in his hand, pinching the skin of his palm together. Inko looked at at Izuku doubtfully. For one, you need to get a paying job. You said that you don't want to be stuck in a dead-end job. Well, that's exactly what crime fighting is. No one ever makes enough money to do anything with. They usually die before they can get that far. You need to have some sort of income. Secondly, our current budget won't cover what you'll need to purchase before you start. Weapons, gears, and increased amount of food consumption due to the increased amount of physical activity you will be partaking in. Anything above what I have been purchasing up to now, you had to pay for yourself. And don't forget, you still owe me the money I paid for your hospital bill. If you are determined to be a crime fighter and can follow those guidelines, then sure, you can become a crime fighter. Just don't come crying back to me when you are on your deathbed. Inko picked up her utensils once more and resumed eating. For the first time in what felt like forever, Izuku smiled brightly at Inko. He unclenched his fists and finished eating, making plans in his head the entire time. First things first, he was going to find a job. It was obviously going to have to be part-time. He was also going to have to start working out. Why did it take this long for him to realize? He didn't know. But it was definitely something that should have been obvious. He was also going to have to learn how to fight. Both with and without weapons would be preferred. Villains will have their quirks, so Izuku was going to need something that can take the place of a quirk. After that, he was going to need to find a way to purchase both the gear and the weapons he needed. He was going to have to write all this down. Izuku stood from the table, washed and put away his dishes, then retreated into his room for the night. Izuku took a spare notebook out from his desk. He hasn't written notes at school for quite some time. So the school supplies Inko purchased for him at the beginning of each semester largely goes towards Izuku's hobby for analyzing heroes. Now, don't get him wrong. Izuku does learn what the teachers are trying to teach. But considering his notebooks were constantly destroyed, he found it was easier to teach himself at home. He took tests, completed his homework, but didn't actually put much effort into them. The teachers always just gave him a straight B- across the board anyways. They have so many papers to grade that it was easier for them to just give him an agreed upon by the teachers grade. This way they spent less time grading papers and it didn't bring down the school's scores. That are turned into the Board of Education. They considered it a win-win for everyone. They even said they're doing him a favor and making sure he never failed his classes, as if it was actually fair. Izuku is certain he would hold one of the top spots in class if they grade him fairly. Excuse me. But, the quirkless can't perform better than those with heroic quirks, aka the top of the class. Izuku sat at his desk and took a permanent marker to his notebook and named it simply Crime Fighting. He opened a browser on his computer and researched meal plans to gain muscles, exercises he can do without a gym, and skills he may be able to learn at home. Oh, parkour would be good. He looked at his notebook and smiling, still decorating his face. He was so excited. He was finally going to be a hero. I'm sorry if I was louder during this. I just saw that my mic sound was up in the red. I'm getting really excited with this story. I love it so freaking much. I am now talking quietly because the soundbar is actually going into the yellow. Mind you, my mic is kind of close to my face. But that was the end of chapter 2. I'm going to read you the first little bit of chapter 3 so you can see what you're looking forward to. When he woke up in the morning, Izuku got onto his computer and started looking for a part-time job. He found one at a nearby cafe. I can't wait until more characters come in. I also kind of want to see how Bakugo reacts to all this. I'm pretty sure I read all the chapters before, but it's actually been a hot minute since I read the full thing. So maybe I'll do that in my own time. But in the text it says that Izuku doesn't go to UA High School. So, in my honest curiosity, how is Eraserhead going to react to this? And who's going to take Izuku's spot in UA? I really hope it's Shinzo. I'm going to read the characters that are in here. It doesn't look like Shinzo's in here. Oh, that sucks. I guess no one's taking Izuku's spot. Well, that would be honestly a first from what I've heard. From what I've heard and read, that a lot of people toss Shinzo into Izuku's spot. I'm also kind of curious who takes All Might's quirk and the LOV. I have questions, man. I guess we'll figure out when we get into later chapters. But I have a feeling it is going to be a little bit until we actually get into UA. So it's going to be a little bit to get into the USJ attack. But it's such a good story, guys. I feel like I read this faster than the last chapter. Anywho, that's all for today, my beautiful mythical creatures. Until next time, peace out. and drink water and eat donuts. Bye bye.